Good morning. You're having a great week. It is early Thursday morning. Friday or Thursday? Let me double check. You know what? I need to double check. It is Thursday. Thursday, November 3rd, 5:18 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, local time here in Springfield, Ohio. Let me turn this fan off. I installed a noise gate and I'm using my good headset, so the audio quality should be good, but turn that fan off just in case. So I am at a Love's truck stop in Springfield, Ohio. I've been here for almost a week, which is normal for me. If you don't follow my channel, you don't know how I operate. I hang out at the house a lot. I hang out in the truck a lot. I'm just really chill. I made a video a long time ago explaining why I became an owner operator and how I set up my business as an owner operator and the way I run. And the short version is I wanted control. I wanted a better work-life balance. I wanted to have a lot more free time. I wanted to be able to uh, take a lot more time off than I worked, and that's not the way life is for most people. You take away the amount of time that you sleep, and you compare the amount of time you work versus the amount of time that you have off, and you don't count sleep time as time off, then most people they're working the majority of their lives. So I've been doing that most of my life, and I decided I wanted to change. And I also love trucking. I was one of the kids, like when I was 9 years old, I wanted to be a truck driver, and that never really changed. So I'm really, really happy where I'm at in life. Yeah, I take a lot of time off at the truck stop. That's my business is set up so that I can do that. I make a lot of money when I do drive, and I don't spend a lot of money when I'm setting, so I can set for long periods of time. Let's talk about a couple of things. I want to cover two things before we start rambling about whatever. We'll probably talk about loads or something. Trying to find a load. Um, number one thing I want to cover is what happened to all my videos. And number two thing, why haven't I uploaded a video in like 4 or 5 months? Well, what happened to all my videos is I took them down. I took them down for two reasons. One, to slow down the growth of my channel. I'm a zero drama kind of person. I can deal with drama if I have to. I've done it. Like I said, I've worked for the majority of my life, and almost every job is customer service in some way or another. You're dealing with drama. So most of us can deal with drama if we have to. I choose not to deal with drama if I don't have to. So as the channel gets bigger and bigger, there's a very small percentage of people out there that are just toxic. And as your channel gets bigger, the more of those people you have to deal with. I am not willing to deal with those people. I haven't had any major issues on my channel. And when I say toxic, I'm not talking about the people that disagree with me or people that are critical of my opinions. Um, some of the people that watch almost all of my videos will occasionally post and say, "Yeah, I don't really agree with you on that. I don't think that's good advice." And they'll give their reason why. Those are not the toxic people I'm talking about. I don't have a problem with that stuff. Talk like on my channel, those toxic people are really, really rare because I keep my channel small, and it's a very small percentage of people that are toxic. Majority of people are just amazing. They're awesome. Um, but I don't want the channel to get to a point where I'll shut it down. That's enough talking about that. The other main reason why I took the videos down is because people were still going to USA Truck based off my video. And while I've never promoted a trucking company, I've never made a penny off of referrals or promotion or advertisement or anything on social media. Uh, I've given information and opinion, and people are still going to USA Truck based off of 2-year-old information that isn't really relevant anymore. Things have changed since. And I don't like USA Truck as a company. I had a fairly negative experience there. And I only, I gave information while I was there, and I told people, I don't really recommend people come here unless, if you're a first year, if it's your first year, you have less than a year of experience, or you have a bad driving record where you can't get on with the better companies, then you're just comparing USA Truck against those other first year companies. They're okay, comparing them against Schneider and um, what are some of those other shitty first year companies? CR England and Swift and all those places. USA Truck isn't that bad. They're not that great either. And I think they've gotten worse since I left. They were getting worse around the time I was leaving. So I don't want people going there based off of my old videos. So now let's move on to topic number 2 that I want to cover. Why haven't I uploaded a video in the last 4 to 5 months? Well, because I sat at home for 4 months. Like I just talked about, I take a lot of time off. So I sat at home for 4 months. I would still be sitting at home right now if Landstar hadn't hit me up and been like, "Hey, what's going on?" They told me I could sit at home as long as I want, but since I don't have any settlement money coming in, I need to give them a credit card number to pay for my insurance and stuff like that. And I was like, "Nah, I'm not giving you a credit card number. I'll just go run some loads if you guys are gonna harass me about the damn money," which I don't have a problem with. We're business partners. If you know, if this were flipped and Landstar owed me money, I was $3,200 in debt to them. If Landstar owed me $3,200 and they hadn't paid a penny of that in 4 months, I would be upset. I would be ranting and raving. So, like, they were much more chill about it than I would have been. So I grabbed a load and left the house. So that pretty much covers topics 1 and 2. Now we'll get to rambling. So the load that I left the house on was a load from Fort Smith, Arkansas to basically Columbus, Ohio, West Jefferson, Ohio, the west side of Columbus. And it was a pretty nice load. I normally would not have hauled this load, but the market is down. And one more thing about why I sat at home for 4 months, it's because the market's down. Expenses are up, mainly fuel cost, but the expenses of everything's gone up. Like Love's raised their shower prices from like $10 or $12. They're now charging $16 for showers. I just went in there to take a shower, and I was gonna have to pay cash for it because I didn't have a shower credit, and the was $16. But the Love's fuel desk person, she was really nice, and she was like, "I'm not gonna have you pay for it. I'll just give you a shower credit, and then I'll use that shower credit and shower." And I was like, "That's awesome." I think it's because I'm so cute. Could also be because I smelled so bad, like I was so stank. She was like, "Make sure I got a shower." Afraid that if she tried to charge me $16, I'd walk out or something, and somebody'd have to smell me. But yeah, so I just had a shower an hour ago. But yeah, the price of everything is going up. So expenses are high and revenue is declining, and there is no end in sight. I don't want to spend an hour talking about the economy and the politics and the wars going on and the potential wars, but the Federal Reserve is aggressively raising interest rates. That's negative for the economy. Fuel prices are really high. That's negative for the economy. Inflation is really high. That's negative for the economy. Um, Everything that's negative for the economy is negative for freight. It means less freight in the future. And on the other side of the equation, truck capacity, you know, every report I've seen has said that truck capacity has stayed flat or actually gone up. So the total number of trucks in the industry hit all-time highs whenever we were at all-time high freight rates, and we basically still have that same number of trucks on the road right now, if not more. And we have declining amounts of freight, and it's just crashing the rates. So what I think is going to happen is we're going to hit the bottom of this market somewhere roughly in the ballpark of 6 months to a year from now. I think that there are a lot of trucking companies, whether that be an owner operator or a small fleet or a mega carrier. There may be some mega carriers out there that are on the verge of going out of business. They're not immune from going out of business. Like Celadon went out of business in 2019 whenever we had a slowdown in trucking. It wasn't even that bad. It was a slowdown, but that was you know due to extreme mismanagement. But that's the way a lot of companies are. Like a lot of these trucking companies are extremely mismanaged. You have people that are truck drivers that are not business owners that become business owners. So they don't really know how to run a business. They're learning as they go. And once you set up a business improperly, once you get into, multi-year long debt, it's really hard to change your business model. So I think there's a lot of trucking companies right now, all the way from single person trucking companies to the mega carriers, that are struggling. They're living paycheck to paycheck. There's a lot of trucking companies out there that are running break even loads. They're running loads at a loss just to keep money coming in. Why would somebody do that? Well, they do that so that they're paying their debts out as far out as they can, but they're trying to get money coming in weekly as quickly as they can to pay debts. They just keep falling further and further in debt as they're going, and they're hoping that rates are going to pop back up. And I think that these people are going to go out of business because right now we are in the busy season. Last quarter of the year is like the busiest freight season. It is the marketing people have talked people into buying tons of shit during the holidays in the winter. So it's like the best marketing like of all time was the creation of Christmas and Thanksgiving and all the rest of these holidays and Black Friday, all these holidays where people just go out and buy lots of shit they don't need. Greatest marketing in the world, whoever did that stuff. But now it's entrenched. It's part of our culture. The people have been doing it for so long. So this is the biggest retail spending part of the year is when all these morons think they need to get out and buy shit for holidays. And they spend more money than they really have spend on. They get really far in debt on credit cards and stuff like that to buy Christmas presents and shit. It's idiotic. People are dumb. But anyway, we're not seeing that retail explosion this year. At least I'm not seeing it. As far as rates go, as far as freight volume goes, I'm not noticing that big retail explosion. And we should be seeing it right now. Retailers should be getting product into market in preparation for the holidays right now. It should have been happening already. I'm not seeing it. Maybe it'll happen. Maybe it's going to be a shorter freight season, a shorter freight boom. Maybe it's not going to be as big of a freight boom, but maybe we might still have it. But what's really scary is with it being this bad during our peak season, imagine what it's going to be like the first quarter of 2023, our slow season. All of these trucking companies that are living paycheck to paycheck, scraping by right now, that are desperate. Imagine what it's going to be like when rates tank. And the rates are going to tank in our slow season because we have so many trucks. And they are just going to take loads at any price just to keep some money flowing in because they have that mentality that as long as they keep the wheels turning, they'll be able to stay in business. And that's not true. You're just climbing deeper and deeper into debt. And the only way you're going to get out is if the rates pop back up. If you're able to stay alive until the rates pop back up. Um, and I don't think they're going to be able to do that. I think the rates are going to be down so low for so long that all those companies that are scraping by paycheck to paycheck, they're going to go out of business. I think we're going to have a lot of trucking companies going out of business in first quarter and second quarter, like it was in 2019. Whenever it was just constant headlines of the number of trucking companies going out of business. I think that's what we're going to be seeing, unless something changes. OPEC is cutting production. So our fuel costs are going to go up even higher. The Federal Reserve is aggressively raising interest rates. That's crashing the housing market. And the housing market is a tremendous amount of freight. It's not just the building materials for the houses. It's not just all these people paying moving companies to move their shit around. It's also Home Depot and Lowe's and your plumbing store and your electrical store and your, all the, when people buy a house, they like to paint, they like to put tables in it, refrigerators, microwaves, toasters, beds. They like to, lawnmowers, landscaping stuff. I mean, there's just a tremendous amount of freight that moves based on home sales. And like I think we're gonna see. It's not just gonna be home sales that we're gonna lose out on. It's not just that part of the freight market. It's gonna be across the board. As interest rates go up, new car sales are gonna go down. Used car sales are gonna go down. Basically, everything that people buy on that they get with a loan, people don't pay generally people don't pay cash for a car. They don't generally pay cash for a house. They get loans to pay for those things over the course of several years. As interest rates go up, people get priced out of stuff. Housing prices are already incredibly high. And if interest rates go up just a little bit, people are going to get priced out of the market because the loans are just going to be so incredibly high. Cars, same thing. Cars just they get too damn expensive as go up. Those people. Now you can't afford the car that you want. Now you have to get that cheap car that you don't want. Like, I don't really want that. So they don't buy the car unless they actually need it because they can't get what they want. And then there's with all the inflation and the rising costs of fuel and food and everything, expendable income's going down. People are buying more needs and less wants. It's just not looking good for the industry for the foreseeable future. This downturn started somewhere. If I had to put a time on it, I would say around February of 2022 is when the downturn started. That's when the freight rates started declining, and that's when I noticed it. And then, of course, Russia invaded Ukraine. Fuel prices had already been going up because, unfortunately, fuel has been politicized, but we have a political party that has an agenda to shut down fossil fuels. And our all of our technology is based on fossil fuels. We do not have anything to replace fossil fuel. We cannot stop using fossil fuel. Possible. We might go extinct as a species if tomorrow we just stopped all usage of fossil fuels. We could potentially go extinct as industrial agriculture stop. Fossil fuels are used in not just the moving things to and from. They're used in the creation of products. They're used in manufacturing. Can't make a computer without fossil fuel. Can't make lots of stuff without fossil fuel. So it is just absolutely idiotic that we have a political party that has basically a war against fossil fuels. It's a war against technology. It's a war against civilization. It's what it is. It just blows my mind that this is taking place. And what they refer to as green energy, not a replacement for fossil fuels. It requires fossil fuel to make these solar panels, wind turbines, and these wind turbines and solar panels are worse for the environment than fossil fuels. It's just it blows my mind that this shit is taking place. But anyway, what was I talking about before I started ranting about that? Um, I don't know. They as far as fossil fuels goes, our country, the government in power right now is shutting down our production domestically. Um, they're doing everything they can to slow or stop production, and because of how negative they are, the oil companies and the fossil fuel companies are not willing to invest in the United States. So we are at like a critical level on refineries. And it takes like 10 years to build a refinery. There are very few of them in the country. And when one of them shuts down for some reason, it has a big impact. And these fossil fuel companies are not willing to invest in building new refineries because of our government. Um, they're afraid that they're going to lose their ass on how much money and time it takes to build one of those refineries because the government is so anti-fossil. So anyway, our government went to Saudi Arabia, and basically begging them to increase oil production, at least for the elections, so that the current party could potentially stay in power. Because right now it's looking like they're going to get voted out of office because of how much they've wrecked the economy. And Saudi Arabia told them to go fuck themselves. Said no, not we're not going to increase production. We're actually going to decrease production. OPEC is decreasing production. It's going to drive fuel prices up even higher. There's a lot of talk right now about a diesel shortage. Normally we have 50 days of supply, and we only have like 20 days of supply right now. That is how much like our buffer is. That doesn't mean we're going to run out of diesel in 20 days. That means that we have 20 days of buffer. As long as the normal, supply takes place, we're just going to keep maintaining that 20-day buffer. Um, it's just a buffer. It doesn't mean we only have 20 days of diesel left. Let me pause this. All right. So I think we've done enough doom and gloom about the future. What do I recommend that you do? If you're an owner operator like me, what do I recommend that you do? Well, I recommend that you run as much as you can. Um, there are people that are taking time off right now because the market's bad. The market is going to get much, much worse, and it's going to be a long time before it gets better. So even though rates are down right now, I think that you should be running. You should be avoiding time off right now, and you should be out there making as much money as you can. You should be in a position where you can either park or you can run on really low rates in the first quarter of next year. Hopefully by the summer of next year, summer of 2023, rates will probably, hopefully, bounce back up to a level where we can make a little bit of money. Um, Luckily, well, luck has nothing to do. I position myself here for this is one of the reasons that I'm leased to Land. I'm hoping that because I'm leased to Landstar and I have access to contract freight at Landstar, I'm hoping that during the really rough times, which I think is going to be in the first quarter of 2023, um, I'm not going to have to run at a loss. I could park the truck. I have that option. I'm never gonna. I should never have to run at a loss. But I should hopefully still be able to make profit in a really bad market. Like I think it's going to be in first quarter of 20. That's the reason I don't burn bridges with like that Hobby Lobby account that I ran that pays next to nothing. It's after the 65% cut, what I actually end up making on that load was like, I don't know. The way they broke it down was really weird with the fuel surcharge and excuse me, driver unload pay and stuff like that. They threw a whole bunch of the agent tried as hard as they could to give the driver as much of the total amount. Like Hobby Lobby is only paying like $840 per load on that, but um, the driver is getting almost all of that. The agent gets very little of that money. Um, so the agent is screwing himself over and Landstar over to try to entice drivers into taking those. But anyway, I did a spreadsheet on that and broke all that down. Of course, I took that video down. You can't watch it anymore. But I did not burn a bridge with that agent. Even though it's a terrible load, I try to avoid burning bridges with agents, even when I have really negative experiences. There are agents that I have blacklisted that I won't haul for, and some of them I'll never haul a load for under any circumstance. But I don't tell them this. That way, if things need to change and I do need to haul for an agent that I don't want to work with, like I didn't tell them to go fuck themselves or anything. For instance, give me two agents that I don't want to work with. One is the Hobby Lobby that I just told you about. I still get emails every week from that agent about Hobby Lobby loads. They have loads that they don't have covered that they're begging people to haul. I don't ever respond to the emails, but I'm still on his distribution list. I could still haul loads for him if I wanted to. Here's another agent. This is an agent that I booked a load with while I was at home for 4 months, and the load fell through because he lied on the load. He listed the load for $5.77 a mile, and then after he sent me I called him, booked the load and everything. He never told me anything different on the rate until I got the email with the rate confirmation, and the load was only paying $3.30 a mile. That's the full rate. I only get like 65% of that. So I don't like this agent. He pissed me off. I canceled that load, but I still get emails and text messages from this agent. I'm on his distribution list now. So he sent me this text message. Let me make sure it's got his phone number up top. I'll just read it to you. You know what? I can block the phone. There we go. And then I'll read it to you. Let me try blocking it with a different finger. There you go. All right, so let me read this load that he sent to me. This was on Sunday. Hi, Daniel. I got two 32-month long projects in Charleston that need power only with wet kit. Don't know what a wet kit is. A wet kit is, those trailers that you see that they lift up and they dump stuff out of them. They have that huge pneumatic uh, um, lift that lifts the trailer up and it dumps things. Basically the trailer will go almost 90 degrees and dump everything out on the ground. Well, a wet kit is basically them hooking up to your truck and installing something that I'm not sure if it uses a fluid in your truck, one of the fluids in your truck, your transmission fluid or what, but it's basically them installing a kit onto your truck that costs somewhere in the ballpark of like $4,000, so that your truck can run the pump and run the hydraulics to lift those trailers up. I don't want to spend $4,000. Anyway, let me finish reading. I'll start all over. Hi, Daniel. I got two 32-month long projects in Charleston that need a power only with wet kit. And if you don't have a wet kit, we will help pay for one. It is $1,600 a day, Monday through Friday. Ladson, South Carolina to Dorchester, South Carolina, pulling 53-foot dry van with rolling floors, 4 loads per day. I didn't look at the distance between these two locations. I don't know how many miles it is, but basically, I need to blow my nose. I want to pause this. All right, we're back. Um, Basically, it's just shuttling loads in between two locations in South Carolina that must be pretty damn close to each other. 4 loads a day. It's 20 fucking loads a week. And that right there is a major pain in the ass with Landstar because every single load you do, you have to sit here and take pictures of every single page of the paperwork. And some of these fucking loads are like 16 pages long. And sitting here trying to get holding the phone up and oh, it's fuzzy. I have to retake the picture. Oh, it's time consuming, pain in the ass. And sending all that every single load, you have to input a whole bunch of information, take a whole bunch of pictures, and send it off to Landstar. So to do that 20 times a week, that in and of itself is like a second job. I don't want to touch a load where I have to do that much paperwork. But $1,600 a day sounds decent. That sounds pretty good. That's the full rate on the load. This thing is really short, so it's probably not going to pay any fuel surcharge or hardly any fuel surcharge. So it's going to be, I'm going to get pretty much 65% of that. So let's do some fucking math here. 1,600 times 0.65, that's $1,040 per day. Roughly $1,000 per day. Before fuel prices shot up through the roof, when fuel prices were almost a third of what they are right now, my goal, what I tried to do, was make over $1,000 per day. Now, with fuel prices almost 3 times higher, I try to do better than $1,000 a day. That's not easy to do with how low rates have gotten. But this load is basically paying near the minimum I'm willing to haul. This is not a very good load. It's a really bad load. It's a 2.5-year contract hauling cheap freight. What it is. It's like $5,000 gross per week. It's not very difficult to make almost double that per week. So, yeah, this is not very good. A poorly negotiated contract. I'm sure he'll be able to find somebody that lives really close to this that's going to love that load. Basically, a local job for them. He could find a local to do it. I'm sure they would absolutely love it. But me having to drive all the way from Oklahoma to South Carolina every week, I probably would only go home once a month, um, and take a couple of days off at home, and then drive back to South. I don't even know how many miles it is, South Carolina. You know what? That's a lot of miles. I wouldn't even have time to drive. I would have to schedule to take like a week off time. So I'd probably sit out there and do this load for like 2 or 3 months and take a week off if I ran this contract. Um, and I'm not sure they would be willing to do that. But if you had a local, that local could have every weekend off and maybe even nights off at home. But anyway, the whole point of that was to just don't burn bridges. Even if you don't like an agent or broker, it does nobody any good for you to tell them off. Tell them to go fuck themselves or anything like that. If you want to let them know that you're, not happy with them, you can do that professionally. There are ways that you can convey that without burning that bridge. And I would avoid burning bridges in business if possible, because at some point you may need to work with those. It could be the difference between staying in business or not. Like if things get really bad, I may go and haul those Hobby Lobby loads. I may go back to hauling those loads, making company driver money less. If things get like, what time is it? It is 5:52 a.m. Wendy's opens up at 6 a.m. They're only open from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. here. The the shop is running shortened hours. They have a message on the Love's app. Let me see what it says. And a lot of Love's locations have this. Um, this location has limited service. Subway 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. So lots of places that you go and look at on Loves are limited service. They're not open, uh, 24 hours a day. The shops aren't open 24 hours a day and stuff like that. And whenever I got my DOT inspection done at the TA in Oklahoma City before I picked up my last load, I sat there and talked with the mechanic and he and I talked for almost an hour. Um, and he told me about how hard it was, how rough it was to keep mechanics on. He said that TA is changing up how they do things, and they're requiring people to go through a much longer training period now. He said used to, I forget the exact timelines, but he said like they would have somebody that knew nothing about being a mechanic, that basically fresh out of high school or whatever, and they would only train them for like 2 weeks, and then they would be working off commission. And he said those people, because they didn't know how to do things and they were really slow at doing stuff, they were working off commission. And he told me that you start out at TA and Petro making 32%, I think it is, of the labor. So whatever you're paying in labor, TA and Petro, the mechanics are getting a minimum of like 32%. He said he was at like 46% because he'd been there for like, he was one of the top mechanics at the location. But he said that he could make like a pretty good living. I think he told me he was making somewhere in the area of like $1,500 a week. He was one of their top paid mechanics. So the other mechanics, since it's performance based and they're getting 32% of the labor, if they're really slow at doing stuff, or they're not getting a whole lot of business or whatever, they can have some really, really bad weeks. He said he's able to consistently make money and he's always been able to do that. But they have incredibly high turnover at TA and Petro because of how inconsistent the pay is, and because a lot of the mechanics are just really slow at doing stuff and they don't know how to do certain things. Um, a lot of the mechanics, especially the new ones, are restricted to basically doing tires only. That stuff pays very, very little in labor. So like they're making next to nothing. That's quitting like crazy. I mean, a lot of people want to cry and whine about labor shortages, not have labor shortages, have wage shortages. I think where the majority of people are going, because all these companies are whining about a lack of labor, and they can't get people to work for them for slave wages. I think it's gig work. A lot of people are doing the gig work stuff. They have an alternative to working for shitty companies. They can be a business owner, and a certain political party is trying to destroy that. They're coming after independent contracting, which is I can't have a rational discussion with somebody about politics. But man, we have a political party. The other political party, I'm not a big fan of them. I don't belong to any political party. I lean right, but I don't like the Republicans. But the Democrats are trying to destroy this country. It's just I can't believe people are voting for them. I think they just listen to the propaganda that they run out, and they don't actually see what they're doing. They don't see the consequences. Have you fucking been to places like Portland? Have you seen the streets just lined with homeless people? Have you seen the crime? Have you seen people shitting on the sidewalks? All right, are you a small business owner? Have seen them shut down independent contracting in California? You know, like, look at what they're doing. I don't know. It just blows my mind. It pisses me off. Anyway, um, trucking is one of those things where it's not in my best interest if you are a truck driver and you stay in business. It's in my best interest if you're a truck driver that you go out of business. But I think it's good for the industry if good trucking companies stay in business. Um, so I try to give advice on the channel that I think is common sense advice. I think it's basic. I think every piece of advice that I give is basic and common sense. You just go out there and look at what's going on. It's not fucking rocket science. Everything is negative for the economy right now. That means freight is going to go down, even to go down much further. And we have a slow season coming up. Freight volume is going to tank in the first quarter of 2020. It's going to be really bad. And we have like a record number of trucks on the road. And they're going to drive down the rates really fast. Really fast. So rates are going to plummet the first quarter of 2023. That's what I think is going to happen. So prepare for it. And, if you're running a good business, then you're going to survive it. You're in a good position. If you are reliant solely on the spot market, you're probably going to go out of business. The spot market is the worst place to be when the freight goes down. It's the best place to be when freight goes up, but it is the worst place to be when freight goes down. Anybody can run a successful trucking business when the market is up, because the spot market is just full of loads that just shower you with money. The real business owners are the ones that survive through the downtimes. And the reason that I'm with Landstar, one of the many reasons I'm with Landstar, is access to contract freight. And to survive a freight market crash, I think you need to have access to contract freight. You need to have access to something other than just the lowest bid spot market. Because you're out there bidding with a record number of trucks that, like I said earlier, they're just out there trying to keep the wheels moving. And they will bid on loads at ridiculously cheap prices at a loss just to have a load, to have money coming in. You don't want to be bidding against those people for loads. You'll go out of business with them. So is there anything else I want to cover? One other thing I'll talk about real quick. California. California has tanked as far as freight goes. It's a mixture of a lot of things. It's a mixture of crime, unions, and AB5. Because of a lot of factors, shippers and receivers are avoiding California at all costs. There's a fear of a union strike at the ports. I don't think they've been working under a contract since like July 1st, so they could go on strike at any moment. That's one of the reasons that shippers and receivers are avoiding California. There is rampant crime. To give you an idea of how bad the crime is, at the rail yards in the LA area, there are groups, large groups of people, like dozens of people, that will just show up to the rail yards. They'll go out there and just cut the locks off the trailers and just unload shit off the trailers. And the rail companies are complaining to the state, that they're not doing anything about it. And we're getting back into politics again about the far left and their stupid agendas, but they have this defund police and, like let criminals run free and do whatever they want. So they're not doing anything about it. So we have this rampant crime where freight is just openly being stolen and there's nothing that you can do about it. If these rail companies tried to stop these people, they would be put in jail. That's the way the Democrat cities run, is that if you try to stop crime, you're more likely to go to jail than the person committing the crime. So, rampant crime, the threat of strikes from the unions at the ports, the rail companies are having a lot of issues with labor. They have a tentative agreement for their contract, but there is still a threat of a union strike with the rail yards as well. And then AB5 has shut down independent contracting in California. There's a tremendous amount of uncertainty and risk in California. And because of that, the freight market has collapsed in California. California is normally one of, if not the most premium market in the entire country. They have so many loads coming in from Asia that get distributed across the country that you just get showered with money whenever you go over to California and haul loads out of there. You can't come out of there and not make money. I always go over to California because it's just crazy money to haul loads. You know, they pay you between $8,000 and $13,000 to haul a load from like LA to Jacksonville. Hell, I've had loads that paid over $9,000 just to go from LA to Dallas, Texas, like halfway across the country. Those are the full rates. I get a percentage of that. Make that clear. That's not how much money I made on the load. That's the total amount that they paid. But that is not the case anymore. Now, those cross-country loads are paying like $1.80 a mile. They're really cheap. You know, instead of paying $8,000 to $13,000, those loads are paying between like $3,000 and $5,000 or $6,000. They're really, really cheap. They're like break-even loads, or actually, you might be running at a loss on those loads with how high fuel costs are. So, the entire West Coast basically sucks for freight. And for anybody who doesn't understand how, the country is, a lot of trucking companies only operate east of I-35. And the reason is because west of I-35, I-35 runs almost straight up and down the center of the country. It's a little off center, more over to the east, but basically west of I-35 is a freight desert until you get to the West Coast, until you get to California or Oregon. Well, not even just Oregon. You have to get all the way to the coast. You have to get all the way to Portland or Seattle or to California. You have to be along the coast. Everything between I-35, almost everything between I-35 and the West Coast is a freight desert. Salt Lake, Albuquerque, Boise, Meridian, El Paso, Amarillo, Denver, Cheyenne, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, all these places, yes, they do have a little bit of freight, but they're all really bad freight markets. You do not want to be in any of those places looking for a load. It's going to be cheap freight, and there's going to be very little of it. So if you're like me and you operate in the western half of the country, you're mainly hauling loads to the coast, and then from the coast back out as far as you can to the central U.S., and then from the central U.S. or the East Coast all the way back over to the West Coast. You try to avoid hauling loads to places like Denver, out in the middle of that desert, because you're going to have to deadhead a really long ways to get to some place that pays decent freight. Well, with the California market shitting its pants, Oregon and Washington, Seattle and Portland are not very good freight markets. They're decent. There isn't really any reason to go west of I-35 anymore. So now, for the foreseeable future, I'm going to be operating east of I-35 for the most part. I don't like doing it, but that's what I'm going to have to do. I might go to Minneapolis and Fargo, North Dakota, and places like that, but I'm not going to head out into the middle of the desert, and I'm not going to head all the way over to the coast. So I'm going to try to stay east of 35. So that's a little tip, a suggestion for how you run your business. If you've got some freight that is still paying really well out in that desert, then great. Keep doing what you're doing. If you have some kind of contract freight or something that you have, then great. But if you're just operating off of how the freight market is doing, then my recommendation is to stay east of 35. Stay out of the desert of the West, because the coast sucks now. What is happening, because everyone's trying to avoid California, is they're running freight through the Panama Canal. Now, the big container ships can't do that. They're stuck. They have to offload in Long Beach or LA. That's it. They don't have any other options. But pretty much all the smaller ships are going through the Panama Canal, which costs a lot of money, but they're paying that money to go through the Panama Canal, and then they're offloading in the Gulf of Mexico, Houston, or they're offloading along the East Coast, places like Savannah, Georgia. Some of them might even be going all the way up the East Coast, coming in through, I forget what river that is, but basically you can go from the East Coast all the way into the Great Lakes and offload in Chicago. Chicago is a seaport. Chicago is like the big booming freight market right now. Chicago is the new LA. So Chicago is really, really, really booming freight. So yeah, I just avoid the west, avoid west of I-35 if you can. That's my recommendation. Anyway, I'm gonna go get me some bacon, egg, and cheese biscuits, and I'm waiting to hear back from a broker agent here at Landstar. There's a $10,000 load, pays $10.68 a mile. Uh, the reason it pays so well is because you have to set for 2 weeks. Customer gets 2 weeks to unload the truck. And I'm sitting here thinking, you know what? I might end up setting for 2 weeks after the load anyway. So why not make a lot of money? It pays $10.68 a mile on the full rate. So yeah, I think I'm gonna if that load is still available, I'm gonna book. Let me refresh. It's still on the load board. I texted the agent, and I suspect that the agent is asleep. I texted him like 3 hours ago. Um, so I'm just waiting to hear back from him. And it's not a direct load, so it's something that it's a co-brokered load, so it's probably a C.H. Robinson or something that a Landstar agent bid on, and so this agent. It's pointless for this agent to get back to me right now, even if he's awake, because he has to wait for the other agent to wake up so he can check with that other agent to see if the load's still available. I don't like doing these loads that are co-brokered, where I'm having to deal with multiple agents or brokers, but if it's going to pay some good money, uh, it's only 15,000 pounds. It's only it's under 1,000 miles. It's going to Dallas, Texas. And I sat there and I thought, after I deliver the load, should I drive to my house? Um, from Dallas to my house is only about a 3-hour drive. It's only like 180 miles from the north side of Dallas to where I parked the truck. So after I deliver the load, should I just bobtail home and sit at the house for 2 weeks, or should I sit at the truck stop? And I'm sitting here thinking, as far as fuel goes, um, I would, over the course of 2 weeks, I would probably burn half a tank of fuel, which is 100 gallons, and it's going to cost me about, well, it would cost me the same. So let's look at it as far as gallons of fuel at a price for fuel. So 100 gallons to set for 2 weeks versus driving to the house 180 miles. I would get close to 10 miles per gallon bobtail. So it would be, what would that be, 18 gallons to drive there, and then 18 gallons to drive back, 36 gallons versus 100 gallons. I think it would be best for me to just drive home and set at home for 2 weeks rather than set at the truck stop. It would cost me a lot less money. But I can make that decision if I get the load. Right now, we're just in a holding pattern to see if I get the load. But I'm gonna go get me a bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit and watch a movie, play a video game or something while I wait on these loads to get posted and agents to message me and stuff. So I was just wanting to give an update as to what's going on with me. So I'm back out hauling loads, and we're doing what we can do. But I'll go ahead and end the video here, get it uploaded. So as much as it's working against me for you to stay in the freight market because we're all in competition with each other, if you're running your business the right way, then I hope you make it. Have a good one. Bye.